Back on the record here with Brandon Lee. Brandon Lee, straight from Brisbane. Good to
Yep,
see you again,
that's
Brandon.
it.
How you been?
Very good. It's great to be here. Thanks, Gavin. I'm doing very well. Been up since today is ANZAC Day in Australia. So ANZAC is Australian New Zealand Army Corps. So this is our Veterans Day, and so we were up at 5:30 to go to the dawn service, which is always very nice. Um, yeah. So no, it's a great day.
Nice. Well,
Bit wet outside. It's not. It doesn't look anything like the Northern Lights that you see here behind me. It's just grey, stormy weather. So
nice. So, yeah, a couple of things to just preview and talk about today. I think ideas that I had was the hackathon. You made a trip out to America. I want to talk about that. I want to talk
absolutely.
about some of the things that I'm seeing online. There's some guys who recently they heard about BSV and they were really excited about it. Now all of a sudden they heard from a friend. In fact, I got a call from a friend of
Oh,
mine and he said that he heard from another guy that BSV was dead and they're closing up shop and it was basically, over with and the
oh,
Teranode wasn't going to happen. And so, I know that you've been around so long and you've seen Bitcoin since the early days and the entire development. So these
okay.
these types of I don't know if you call them yell and fire in a crowded theater type things probably don't phase you one bit. So I'm just kind of wondering. I'd love to
No.
hear your perspective on the tech and the overall sentiment before we go into the hackathon stuff. Yeah. So what's
Okay. Well, I mean, for me, like BSV is dead. Long live BSV. It's a refrain that has played 1,000 times in this here Old West saloon. I think we can safely ignore anyone proclaiming that BSV is dead. And I mean, trying to say that Teranode is not coming out, I'm pretty sure that Teranode is mining blocks on mainnet every day, like multiple blocks. We've just seen some 4 million transaction blocks in the last day or two from Gorilla Pool and Kuv and a couple of other miners. So, I mean, yeah, holy fake news, Batman. Like, I think we can safely ignore those guys. But I think I have seen on X this morning while I was just in my morning having a look at what's happening there. Some really long-term people, Kurt, and a few people around Kurt getting actually quite frustrated and calling people out for being toxic. And actually, I called someone out yesterday for being very toxic. I'm pretty quick on the block button, so if I see you being toxic, even if it's not to me, but people who I know and respect, I'll just cut you out of the conversation. So, I mean, look, I try to ignore that kind of stuff as much as I can. Sometimes it's interesting to read what they are saying, just to laugh about it. Um, but look, in terms of the tech, uh, yeah, I did come to the US recently, which was an amazing trip. It was very last minute for me. I kind of decided at uh, 9 p.m. on Friday night I'm going to go, book tickets, rocked up at the airport at 9 a.m. Like 12 hours later on a jet, uh, flew via San Francisco to Austin, and then straight from the airport to the venue. I didn't even get to have a shower. Straight in, found myself a team, and started hacking. And what a great event! And what was amazing was the quantity of people there. So they had over 20 participants for sure, 13 teams competing for the prizes that they had on offer. And actually, they ended up I think they gave out 5 prizes. And one of those prizes actually went to one of our employees at ELAS, Freddie Honohan, who has been developing a back to Genesis resistant token. So it's a token that you can issue that and use without needing like an indexer. And you can, it's got a script that actually solves that back to Genesis problem. And so he was actually managed to get some things working within the framework. So the idea of the hackathon was testing out a bunch of these new tools that the Bitcoin SV Association or BSV Association has been working on for, I don't know, probably a year and a half now. And these are all around identity, overlays, there's a wallet, and it's all designed with SPV in mind. It's all designed to work with Teranode. And, this kind of stuff is actually super important as we move forward. And, for people like us who've been here for a long time and actually building products, it is there is a small amount of frustration there because we've obviously built our stuff around existing tools. A lot of those tools are now being deprecated, and we're having to go back and rework a lot of stuff to migrate it to these new tools. But at the same time, that's quite a good feeling knowing that as we transition from, where we've been for the last whatever 7 years, where there hasn't actually been a whole lot of activity on the network, to a situation where potentially within a year we might be seeing organically millions of transactions on the blockchain every day. We need these tools, and we need that toolbox to evolve so that when people build on BSV, they're not having things burn down, they're not having things stop working, and they can trust that the tools that they're using have been designed in a way that is considerate of that hugely scaled environment. And so in that context, overlays, the new MetaNet toolbox that they've produced is all very important. And it was great to see so much excitement for those tools at the hackathon. So everyone there was right into getting those to work and learning how to use them. And so, from my perspective, I think we're very well positioned to take advantage of what I see as very quickly growing organic interest in BSV.
Fascinating. All right. So you ended up at the hackathon. You flew out last minute, it sounds like. And now,
Yep.
I heard from, I don't know if it was Mike or somebody there or who it was. Maybe it was Brett, that you were involved in a team, or you were maybe like behind the scenes working on a team. So I want to know, like, if you were on a team, what happened and how that worked out, if that's the case. Or
There was no behind the scenes. So I arrived.
You were.
I had
okay.
no plan. I arrived. I had a laptop. I spent probably half an hour walking around saying hello, meeting new people, and there were a couple of guys who I sort of spoke to and asked what they were doing and mentioned that I was looking for a team, and then they seemed interested. They were guys I hadn't met before. And then I said, look, I'm just going to go around and see what everyone else is doing and say hello to a few people. And then they came back after about 20 minutes and said, hey, we're really interested in having you join the team. And so I just went, yep, okay, great. Put me on their team. And they were building so what we created was a tool for medical surveys. And so the idea being that currently, I get the feeling when you often when you go to a doctor's and get prescribed something, you actually don't really get a good idea of what that medicine might do to you in terms of side effects, in terms of actually what it's designed to treat and that sort of thing. And so the idea was to create a survey where, so after a patient had been given a prescription of a particular treatment, they could go back to the doctor's surgery and with the doctor actually be presented a survey that is created by the company who makes the drug that asks a series of targeted questions that relate to the nature of the treatment, like what was the ailment, has it improved or been resolved, and in terms of the known side effects, did you experience any of them? And to be able to tell people, because once we don't have drug advertising on TV in Australia, but I'm always amused to turn on the telly in America and see in the commercial break, you get these ads for whatever it is, uh, hair thickness treatment, and then at the end of the ad, you see about 10 seconds of people dancing and walking in the sun, and while someone just reels off a list of like 50 side effects that you might experience when you take this
Pretty
drug.
serious side
And
effects too,
yeah,
usually.
yeah, quite often. Oh, you might you might get cancer, you might die, your hair might fall out, all this stuff. And it's like, holy crap, why would I actually take that? But the thing is, you actually have no idea, like, well, how many people who take that drug actually experience that side effect? Is it 80%? Is it 0.08%? And so the idea being that, well, we need a way to be able to actually capture that data straight from the horse's mouth as it was, and to then effectively collate that data and present it to future patients who are looking at using that treatment. And so what we were trying to do was create a smart contract that would collect survey results and then package them in a way that so that anyone who was going to get a prescription could scan like a QR code or something and be taken directly to a a form that says, well, here's the data. We've had 10,000 people who've tried this medication and to be treated for this. 87% have seen these improvements in their symptoms. 23% have had this side effect. 8% have had this side effect. 0.1% have had this side effect. And so now, as a patient, I've all of a sudden got so much more information about how effective this drug is, but also how what the negative impacts of using that treatment might be. And so I mean, in terms of a hackathon project, it's a pretty big one to take on, and unfortunately, now the two guys who I jumped on the team with had never actually used BSV before. They didn't even know what it was, and they just heard there was a hackathon. One of them had done a crypto project in the past on some sort of Ethereum thing. So a lot of our time was spent me explaining to them BSV and what it is and how it works. And unfortunately, we weren't really able to wrangle the tools in such a way as to create an effective demo. And so I think we didn't win any prizes, but that's all right. I wasn't there to win the prizes. I was there to really catch up with everyone. Be there, be present, and really just get that kind of excitement happening. And so yeah, the hackathon was a great experience, and it was really good to catch up with a heap of people. Saw Kurt, Brent, Carl, Kurt's brother Carl, the team from Babage, Ty, Tone, Brandon, all those guys. It was really an excellent event, and very well organized. The venue was excellent. The guys, it was in a sake distillery, and just really kind of great vibes. Very positive event.
Nice. Sounds like it. Thanks for the feedback. I'm really excited to hear that you went and you were able to make the long flight out there to make the appearance. I was excited when I saw your pictures there. I was like, wow, that's freaking amazing, dude, that you freaking did that. So, there's Raphael had mentioned a team or a gentleman that came over from BTC that was there that he knew from the past. And I think it's Todd, but I'm not. Anyways, they built a prediction market on BTC. It didn't work. They tried and they couldn't do it after 2 years. And then they came to that event. Do you happen to know who that was? He's been on X lately and he's got a pretty big following, pretty decent sized following on X. And because Raphael responded to him, I'm trying to find it, but I'll have to locate it if I can. Anyways, he had responded to Craig, and Craig and him are back and forth about how it works, because he's like, he it's a very complicated issue on this prediction market thing, apparently, with what he's doing. And anyways, it's I'm wondering if you met him. I think it was Todd or something. See if we can find his name, but I don't know.
Look, I'm sure I would have. I really did try to meet everybody, and so I'm sure I met him and shook his hand, but I don't recall. But
Prediction
mind
market.
you got got to give me a little bit of slack because by the time we stood up to present, I think I'd had about 3 hours sleep in 4 days or whatever it was, and I was falling over tired, and so I don't actually really remember doing the presentation. Like it's all very, very hazy at the end there. Um, so it's possible that I met him. It's possible we even sat down and had a half an hour chat, but I don't I don't remember.
Sounds like you're on a freaking different times. You're like on a freaking big time jet lag. I would imagine at that
Yeah,
time.
well, so I mean, because what did I leave Brisbane at 10 in the morning, and then I arrived in San Francisco at 9, about an hour and a half before I left Brisbane. In terms of because you jump back a day as you go over the date line, and then I think I had a 2 hour stopover there, and I always struggle to sleep on airplanes.
Hmm.
Because you're sitting up, and it's really hard. And I think I slept maybe 2 or 3 hours on the way there, and then we were at the venue until midnight. And but then one of the things that we were trying to do in our product was to actually, one of the techniques I've been playing around with for quite some time is to generate documents that are actually PDF documents, and output them as the kind of processing outcome of a smart contract. And so you can have a smart contract that has stored inside of it all of the pieces that you need to construct a template PDF document. And then in the input of the transaction, you feed it the data that you want shown in that document. And so you input all of the data points that are going into the PDF. It slots them all into the template, and then generates a transaction output, which is it's like a false return output, which has like a PDF document. Or actually, you can actually then just compress that down to the hash of the PDF document. So you literally generate the PDF document on the stack, then you hash it, and you put the hash in the output. And so we use that in our hackathon product. And so I was up until 3 getting all of that working, and then I've got about an hour and a half or 2 hours of sleep. It was very windy the night that I was there, and there was banging and all kinds of noise. And I don't know, when you get into that state where you're kind of super overtired and you can't fall asleep. And it's
Oh gosh,
I got,
delirious,
so
huh?
got back the next morning, coffeed it up, and pushed through until it was hand in was at 11 a.m. and we worked right up to the buzzer. Um,
Wow.
so yeah, it was fun. It's good to challenge yourself in that way. So
Seriously, yeah, that's a very good challenge. I mean, incredible products that come out of it. So, I mean, what is your take on all the transactions that are going on? I looked at today. It looks like they're doing about 55 million transactions right now. You were saying, is that BS? I mean, are those? What do you think is going on? I mean, is that Teranode stuff you mentioned?
yeah, I mean, I don't think any of that is organic in nature. I think that that's people generating transactions to for a story, to post the pie chart on X and whatever. And which is cool. Just clean up after yourself. I saw some guys were saying, "Oh, we're going to expand the UTXO set." Well, does that mean that they're going to create, you know, a billion spendable outputs and then never spend them? Because I think that's kind of, it doesn't. It's not helping anyone. It's just making a big mess that's kind of going to sit there forever. So do clean up after yourselves, guys. Please. Um, but I think we're not far off seeing those levels of transactions from just people using it for normal stuff,
Organic.
and organic. That's where we want to get to. So it's what's always been important is to know that when the organic transactions come, that we can do it, right? So it's no good. It's like I don't know if you've ever seen. There's a great movie, Harrison Ford, called The Widowmaker or something like that. It's about a submarine, and
Hmm.
he's kind of dropped in as the cap because the other captain gets sick or dies or something happens. And so they bring him in as the captain, and nobody likes him. And the first thing he does, so they're in this brand new submarine, and he says, we're going down to 300 meters depth, and the first mate comes up and says, "Oh, so but the sub's only rated to 250." I don't care, 300 meters, and they go straight down, and everyone's listening, and this thing is creaking and bending, and but doesn't break. And so that becomes really important later in the movie because they have to do that to get away from the enemy sub. So it's important that we do these tests. We know that we have the ability to accommodate that kind of load because we know it's coming. And in fact, that's really just the first step in a long staircase to trillions of transactions per day. And so it is important to do these stress tests. I do think it's also important to do them in a way that you're not just leaving a big mess. Clean up your UTXOs. Don't just leave a billion UTXOs sitting there that nobody else can spend because you chuck the keys out.
Yeah,
guys.
seriously.
But doing the stress test, it's great because now we can go to someone and say, "Hey, you've potentially, you're not going to need 20 million, 50 million transactions a day for this. Well, here's the evidence. Organically, currently, there's less than a million. There's maybe 100,000 that are actually organic. But we can do 100 million, 200 million, no problem." And so then the thing will be that when the first business comes, the second one won't be far behind, and then the third, and then the 100th, generating 50 million. So, and then all of a sudden we're in a situation where it's billions per day.
Yeah, that it's not far off. I mean, it isn't. And here it is. Paul Stowe, SZTORC was the guy's name I was trying to think of. He's on X, Truth Coin, and he was there at the hackathon. And
he?
Yeah, BIP 300 is something that he's working on, and apparently he tried to build it on BTC, and it didn't work. It's a prediction market, and he came to that hackathon to use BSV, and it worked. That's the story I heard from Raf.
because he was talking smack the day before yesterday,
right?
And he wants a debate about SPV.
He wanted
I actually put my hand up and said, "Yeah, I'll debate you." But I think Kurt is getting it set up. I think Kurt is certainly more. He wanted someone very well known. Kurt is very well known, and certainly will be able to show him the way.
Nice. That's what's necessary. So okay, great.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Well, then I should probably see if I can help out.
Oh, that's really interesting. I didn't actually know. I probably did meet him, and it was probably high on Paul.
Yeah, he was there. How funny!
Wow, interesting.
Yeah, very interesting. So yeah, he could be. I mean, I don't know if you're quick to block him. I wouldn't block him yet because he's definitely.
No, I haven't blocked him.
Okay, yeah,
he's
probably
because
he's
despite he may be contrarian, but he's not rude, and he hasn't been. I haven't seen him being nasty to anyone or anything like that. He's saying, look, he's saying, hey, you guys don't understand, but we're saying no, you are the one who's misunderstanding. These techniques that we're talking about and we're implementing and we're using, they were in the white paper, from before the first block was ever mined. So is it that you guys are still trying to write these things that totally ignore the fact that it says all of this here in the foundational document of the system?
No, this would be a great debate. I'm gonna reach out to Kurt, and I'll reach out to these guys and see if I can host it, because it would be really a good talk. And it sounds like, I mean, that's what I want to hear, is an open-minded BTC core guy. Like, look, like who is actually coachable and teachable and willing to learn. That would be amazing. I think it would be a great to hear. And remove all the name calling stuff, and then just go to a true high level debate. That like, I want to see that. I've been wanting to. I've been wanting to see it, because hey, if this guy's right about BTC, let's hear it. Let's hear it.
Yeah. I mean,
I
Like,
mean,
surely he. So if he came to the hackathon and he tried to set up his prediction market using the tools, all of those tools use SPV. So surely somewhere in the back of his mind, there's a little bell that's going, hey, there's something here. Maybe we should actually revisit this.
wow.
You know,
So Babbage is using SPV. That's how they function.
well, I mean, SPV is just a way to verify that a transaction exists on the blockchain. And once you can verify that a transaction exists, then anything that's in that transaction can also be validated. And so there's a ton of flow on effects from that. Um, and all you need to validate that is the block headers. So if you have a transaction that you want to show me, and I have a list of block headers, you can give me that transaction and the Merkle proof, and then I can then show myself that that transaction existed in that block and it was time stamped, and one of the miners agreed, yes, real, valid, 100%. I can take that to the bank. I can now, what it doesn't tell me is, have you already spent the outputs of that transaction? But maybe that's not something I care about. Maybe you're showing me your identity. Maybe you're showing me a piece of content. Maybe, whatever it happens to be. Like there's so many, you know, people will throw up these obstacles. Oh, but it doesn't do this, but it doesn't do that. And it's like, but yeah, it doesn't really matter. There's a million things that it does do. And those are all exceptional value adds to the system. And so, you got to stop getting stuck staring at the bark of the first tree in the forest, because there is millions of square miles to explore. And you're
Yeah.
staring at a bug on the bark of the first tree and going, oh, well, we can't get past this. And it's like, well, no, you absolutely you can, and everything is there and it's all ready, and it's actually, now that it's working and it's being tested and implemented, and projects are being built that include these techniques. And so we're living the proof today that this actually functions. And so, I
So
think
So, all right. Now, Brandon, I want to humor me for a moment because I have another gentleman I'm going to do a show with tomorrow. He's an influencer, and he does crypto, but he also is he's into politics, and so now his crypto knowledge, I really don't think that he's pre 2017. I'm almost positive. I don't know for sure, but I think he got into it after 2018. So when I asked him if he'd ever heard about BSV, he said innocently, completely innocently, never heard a word. He never, all he didn't even know. Yeah, and we started talking about like scaling and all these things, and he's like, "Oh, Lightning Network," and in it completely in an innocently friendly way. In no way was he trying to troll or nothing, right? So we're gonna
sure,
talk, but let me, like he turns a lot of people on like crypto and what's possible, and he's like talking about how the future, there's gonna be this great future of like we're building the tracks right now in what he calls crypto, right? And so in the crypto market, it's the early days, and you got to get ready because you got to buy all this stuff now. I mean, help me talk to a guy like that who's never heard of what you're talking about with Bitcoin. Like this is just
sure.
okay. And like, where are we going? I mean, a guy like that, like he's thinking long term, but at the same time, like
Hmm.
I don't know, help me. If you're talking to his name is, I mean, let's say you're talking to Josh, right? And Josh is like
Yeah.
really like wanting to learn and understand, but it is brand new to that side. In fact, it doesn't even sound possible from everything he's read and heard.
Sure.
So
I mean, look, so you have to kind of to understand the mindset. So the crypto, the story of crypto, the big story of crypto has been for the last many years that we're going to have blockchains for everything. When you go to the doctor, you're going to have Doctor Coin, and when you go to the supermarket, you're going to buy beef with BeefCoin. And I'm not even kidding there. I've seen a guy, and not just any guy, a university tenured economist stood up at a convention here in Brisbane and presented BeefCoin. And essentially, his whole thing was, oh, if you buy BeefCoin, then at the value of BeefCoin will go up, and at some point in the future, you'll be able to go to a farm and use it to buy beef directly from the farmer. And my first question to him was, well, what the fuck does a farmer do with BeefCoin? Because can he take that down to the vet and get beef treatment? Or does he have to separately go and buy vet coin? And then what does the vet, like, how does this work? And where does the farmer get paid out of all of this? Like, because I gave my money to a crypto exchange. They're not going to give it to the farmer. And so I think there's a whole piece missing here where they're misinterpreting the entire idea of this. Now, what I think the original scaled plan for Bitcoin was one chain that is usable globally by everyone. It scales big enough that no matter how many transactions every person, every company in the world does every day, no matter how granular we decide to go, the network is robust enough and capable enough to handle that load. And so now, when you're all in the one place, it becomes so much more simple. Because I mean, you look at crypto. You've got this chain here, and you have some token that's been created on this chain, and you're now trying to do trade with this token here, which has been created on that separate blockchain. But the fees on those two blockchains are too high. So now you've got some cross-chain system where you have some other chain that's now handling the interface between these two. And all of a sudden, you now have 4 different interface points that you have to engineer in order to make your product work, because you've got to have something on this blockchain that can talk to that blockchain. You've got to have something onto your cross-chain. You've got to have something on your cross-chain that talks to that blockchain and to that blockchain, and then something on this blockchain that talks to your cross-chain.
Doesn't that expose you to risk at every point?
Yes. And so if you look at most of the notable crypto hacks that are not exchanges, essentially, people stealing the money out of exchanges, most of the notable hacks where, like the big one that caused the Ethereum split, those are times where people have exploited holes in those kind of cross-chain bridges and used that in order to steal funds or lock funds up in such a way that they can't be retrieved. And every time you create one of those links from one chain to another, you create a bunch of new security holes. Now, the idea with Bitcoin is, well, everything is now in one place. It's all on one ledger. But within that ledger, we can create a multitude of separate other ledgers. Think of them like separate pages in the same book. So, it's okay that you're on a different page. It's still the same paper. You write with the same pen, and you're transferring from this page to that page. In crypto, it's a different book written in a different pen with a different ink in a different language, and you're trying to talk, and you're setting yourself up to fail. And I think it doesn't take too much research to see that failure is very obvious, and crypto can paper over that as much as they like and say, but look how much value was created. But it's all fake value. Like, there's nobody in crypto has made money except by taking it from somebody else who thought that maybe they could make money by also taking more money off someone else. And so you're always waiting for the greater fools to come along and put their money into the system. It's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm. Right. I mean, that's the thing I just can't get. I guess I wrap my head around it, but I mean, but until you actually see for the first time that, wait a second, well, you mean crypto is not just about trading and about numbers? I mean, it's actually, there's something more to it than that. And yes. I mean, that's what, that it sounds like you're trying to get across. We're trying to get across people like, well, wait a second, there's a whole nother level here to this that is, it's actually like below how you, it's like the base layer of the internet. Like, it's all invisible. Mm-hmm. You never really see it, but it's the piping, right? Of how things actually function.
Yeah. And, to quote Craig Wright, it is the plumbing of the future. And it's when you actually go in depth and you start looking at things like IPv6 and you start looking at how, I remember reading the IPv6 release spec back when I was a university student and being very, very excited about the potential of this thing to connect every device and enable us to have this real security and privacy and all of this. And unfortunately, it's gone through its own kind of battle of the wills between the corporate paymasters and it. There's a lot of functionality in IPv6 that should have been there from day one, which still is not enabled. And the cool thing is that I think that Bitcoin is going to be the catalyst that sees all of that switched on. And as soon as that happens, all of these functions within Bitcoin, the actual reason why they're there becomes super obvious. And because now we're kind of the whole private public key usage that comes into how we generate IP addresses. We can generate secure IP addresses to have chats with each other, to do commerce. Currently your IP address is fixed. Even if you're on IPv6, your IP address is fixed by the internet service provider. Your device can't generate new IP addresses. But the reality of the protocol is I should be able to generate 1 billion IP addresses every day for my entire life and never, generate the same IP address as someone else, never have any restriction on that. The protocol is massive and open. And so part of this is not just Bitcoin, but it's also a revolution in the functionality of the internet. And so when we say plumbing, like it's plumbing at a very, very deep level, like going almost down, like right down into the network layer of our communications infrastructure.
For me, Brendan, is there another, okay, like help me understand and see if I'm anywhere close to being right on this. I mean, I really, what motivates me is, like, at least it's always motivated me, is I want to be able to transact with the next guy in cash on between he and I. I don't want, well, I mean, I already have enough. I already have plenty of intermediaries in my life, and I'm going to always have some.
Oh,
But
yeah.
what motivates me is having a way to transact with someone else where I don't have anyone else in between us. And so,
Mhm.
is that really what the future of Bitcoin is? Like, or does it also plug in other people, intermediaries? I mean, like where it's not peer to peer. I mean,
I mean, so it totally depends on what you're trying to do.
yeah,
Now, if you, so I think for a lot of things to happen, we do need governments to come on and actually issue their currency as cash tokens on Bitcoin, and so that we can have a UTXO that is a US penny or a dollar bill or $100 bill or whatever it happens to be. And in that case, when we get that, then absolutely I can exchange with you and no third party. I just give you the dollar and we broadcast the transaction and it's done. Currently, obviously, you to do any kind of electronic transfer, there's third parties, there's credit card companies, there's
yeah, onboardings. That's how it is now.
yeah.
So, but I
So
mean,
the
what
only
about,
way to do that kind of private is with paper money, and they're trying
right?
to take that away. Like it's certainly in Australia, using paper cash is getting harder and
Oh, yeah, they
harder. And
banned
I'm
cash at let's see, I was at the Sacramento baseball stadium, the LA Dodgers baseball stadium. They look at you like you're fit, you're sick. I thought they thought I
oh
was
yeah,
I'd try to use cash. It's actually against the rules there. You're not allowed to.
wow.
So yeah, it's not the same. So we definitely need to bring back cash to this peer-to-peer network. And I mean, are there any other crypto like things that are working on that, or that even values that you know of that like actually are passionate about peer-to-peer? Because it, or am I just,
I don't. I
no,
no, I don't.
I don't
I
think
struggle
so.
to come up with it. Most of them are focused on uh, driving a price into the base token so that it can be traded on
Yeah.
exchanges. And there's a kind of an extraction and a thanks, I'm out of here
Help me.
mentality.
So help me understand, like with the difference with proof of stake, and because Is proof of stake
Oh,
peer to peer? Is that peer to peer?
it's got nothing to do with peer-to-peer. So you can have peer-to-peer, and so proof of stake versus proof of work is on the other side of the ledger. So
Yeah.
you submit transactions to the ledger, and then there's a validation and a block building process, and then it's in that process where it's proof of work versus proof of stake. Now, the best explanation I've got for why proof of stake won't work is so in order to scale the network, it requires significant investment. So it requires investment in computer hardware. It requires investment in network infrastructure. You need to be very well connected to other nodes on the network. You need to invest in things like hashes and stuff like that. I think that there is massive, huge, like 100x overinvestment in ASICs and hash machinery. And I think there's going to be a big kind of burst in that at some point. But in proof of work, because the reward that you get is directly related to the amount of work that you do. How good are you at validating blocks? How well connected are you to the rest of the network? How fast are you getting your message out to the other miners when you find a block? That is directly correlated to the likelihood that you're going to be able to claim that reward. And so the nature of proof of work is such that you must be an investor in your infrastructure. Now, you contrast that with proof of stake, where there's no need to be well connected. There's no need to be the fastest, most capable node. The only thing you have to have is a fat wallet. And the fatter the wallet, the more chance you have of being rewarded. And so, what incentive is there for anyone to ever invest in any kind of infrastructure at all whatsoever? Your incentive is actually to kick transactions off the network.
Hmm.
Your incentive is to have to deal with as little user input as possible and just to have the fattest wallet. And anytime you need to upgrade your infrastructure, that's at a cost to your state. You have to take money out of your wallet and spend it on stuff. And so the entire idea of proof of stake is totally against infrastructure, totally against improvement of the network, totally against providing a performative environment for businesses to use. So,
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole load more theory, but for me, that kind of encapsulates it really neatly. Who in proof of work versus proof of stake is incentivized to build us, the users, the better environment.
Hmm.
And it's proof of work 100% of the time. Proof of stake is just la la land crap. Like, no one's ever going to spend money on a proof of stake network because they're spending their stake.
Yeah. So you are working on, it sounds like you're working on something new that's exciting that one of your guys won, was that the hackathon you said, was he a winner or one of
Yeah.
the, or was he,
Yeah, he was a winner. So Freddie Honohan came fourth, I think, and so he has been working on a back to Genesis token, which is pretty interesting, called Bolt. And as part of that, um, because Bolt requires a very, very complex script to be used, what we found was there isn't actually any kind of development environment available to engineers to build and test Bitcoin script properly. Now, there's a bunch of kind of sandbox stuff where you can load a script in and put some inputs and watch the stack, but nothing that allows you to construct whole chains of transactions where you're creating some particular kind of output and then spending it and generating a new state and effectively we always have this argument, is Bitcoin Turing complete? Well, yeah, it's 100% Turing complete. And we now have an environment where we can create a chain of transactions that shows that there's a memory from this transaction to the next transaction to the next transaction, where we can send things in a particular direction, create this kind of state outcome here that does this there, or then do another test where we go in a different direction. And it really, for us, it has massively accelerated our ability to develop and test very complex scripts and smart contracts. And so the exciting thing for us is that, as I would say, Freddie and I are top 10 easily Bitcoin script engineers in the world.
Wow.
And this tool is like nothing else. And we are imminently making that available. So we already have people in the BSVA and also externally to the BSVA who have access to it and have been using it and testing it. And very soon we're going to open that up. Now, initially it's going to be invite only. And so we are going to be asking people to provide us with some evidence that they know what they're doing, because it's not a simple environment to use. There's a fair bit of setup when you're building a smart contract and putting the simulator together. So we don't want to have to spend our time teaching people how to code Bitcoin script when really we just want to be focused on teaching them how to use the environment. So we're looking for the people who are out there who have a very good handle on how Bitcoin script functions and have used it, and who can demonstrate to us that they've used it and explain concepts. And then we will be taking them and giving them access. And so that will probably be for a few months until, and the goal of that is to get more feedback and make more improvements, make the system more intuitive and easier to use. And then probably in the second half of the year, probably further towards the end of the year, we're going to go for a public release. And at this stage, we're unsure whether that's going to be freely available to everyone or a paid product. And that just depends on some other things that are happening in the background. But I think that this certainly for us has been a catalyst for us to be able to produce much more sophisticated functionality, to process more things in a much different way in transaction outputs. And so look, it's for me as a scripting fanatic and someone who loves building smart contracts on Bitcoin, it's making it rain for me. Like, I love it. It's super exciting to use, and I really can't wait to see what people come up with when we get it into their hands. I think there's so much latent talent out there, and we just need a way to catalyze it.
Nice. This is awesome,
Yeah.
Brendan. I mean, this is really a great show. I mean, I really appreciate you coming back on. So
My pleasure.
any closing thoughts you want to leave us with? And where can people find you if they want to? I mean, you being one of the best top Bitcoin script engineers in the world. I mean, ultimately your team.
Oh
So
yeah, for sure.
I mean,
You can contact me. I'm usually hit X at least once a day. I'm just Brendan _Lee __. Otherwise, email, I'm just Brendan at elas.co, or you can check out our website, elas.co. The Bitcoin scripting environment is being released. We're calling it Bitcoin SX. And so SX stands for script extended. So actually, one thing I didn't mention is that part of it is that we have actually extended Bitcoin script. And so when you're coding in Bitcoin SX, you're not having to use op underscore before every opcode. It's just straight, drop, dupe, very quick. But then you can also create macros. So I can create a function that maybe is 100 opcodes long, but then in my main contract, I can just call that with a single command. And so it massively accelerates your ability to build stuff. It's super exciting. So that the website for that environment is bitcoinsx.io. And if it's not, I'm pretty sure by the time this interview comes out, you'll be able to go onto that website and request an invitation into the system. And hopefully there are people who are watching this who have the skills that we're looking for and want to use this and get familiar with it and really start to accelerate their own Bitcoin scripting journey. I've always said, since 2018, that Bitcoin script engineering is going to be a massively valuable skill. And, if you want it to be so, it can be a career. And this is a tool on which you can begin to build that career. So, yeah, please, if that's something that you think is for you, check it out. Come talk to me. My DMs are open on Twitter. So just hit me up anytime and we can chat.
Hey, Brendan, thank you, my man. I greatly appreciate it. And don't forget to look up Daniel Street. He's out there. He's down in Melbourne. I don't know how far that is from you
Oh
guys,
yeah,
but
great. Yeah, Daniel Street. I know Daniel
yeah, you
and
know
his
Daniel.
brother.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, yeah.
he's out there, and the
From
others, Aussie like yourself.
Lumint.
So, yeah. Well, hey, man, great
Yeah,
to see you. I greatly appreciate it. Okay, let's do it again sometime. All right.
great. Thank you, Gavin.
Yep. I'll
Much
see you at the top,
appreciated.
everybody. Hit the ones, everybody. Likes, comment, subscribe. Be sure to follow Brendan Lee, and we'll see you again at the top later.